Aloha and welcome to Experience 51. This is the third part of our series on creating the digits application. And in the last part, what we did was we mocked up the list context page with some data in an object that we had in the actual React component. What we're going to do in this part is move that data into the database and then extract it from the database and when we want to render the page. So the page doesn't look much different actually when you render it after this. It's going to be better because actually it will be interacting with the database in order to get the data. All right, so the first thing is you probably want to be watching this first so that you get the gist of it. Don't watch this and press pause and then type what you see on the screen. I suggest you go through it, maybe looking at these instructions, and if you see things that happen that you want to remember, maybe take notes on a piece of paper or something. And then use your notes rather than kind of using the video as your guide. Otherwise, you're just learning how to copy code out of a video. It's not that helpful. All right, so the first thing we have to do is merge the list context branch into master, whichever one you finished up with, list context page 1, list context page 2. In order to do that, what you want to do is make sure Meteor is not running, which it's not, and then you can go to GitHub, and the way that I like to do it is go to the master branch, and then we say merge into the current branch, which is master. And list context page 1 is the one that we want. So we'll click that, and then let's push this to GitHub so that we always have a copy at GitHub. And now our master branch is updated with the results of the part 2 of digits. Whoops. And so if we now go back here, we're going to do a Meteor npm run start. So let's go back to terminal. We'll do Meteor npm run start. Just a note that if we go return, you can see we're now in the master branch. So Meteor npm run start is going to start up our application. And then once it's running, we'll check it in localhost 3000. So it's running. We'll do a refresh here, and we can see that actually we're still logged in, but we'll sign out and then go here, and here we are, just all back to normal. And so I think we're ready to start the WOD. So we'll start the timer, which does not appear to be running. So let me go find it. Applications, time, and then, applications, time, there we go. Okay, so let's start the timer. And create a branch called context collection 1. So we'll say new branch, contacts collection 1, create. Let's publish this to GitHub. And then, oops, we'll go back here. And we've got our application started. Okay. We'll look at the console just to make sure there's no errors. No, it looks good. And then we'll define the context collection. So we're going to make a copy of the app API stuff directory and call it context, and then rename stuff.js to contacts.js. So we'll do a propeller C, and I'm going to do this. I got this new thing running that a student suggested to me where when I do these key bindings, it's going to display in the window. That's pretty cool, so you can see what I'm typing when I do a key binding. Okay, so I'll try to not pay attention to that. And then we can do a refactor. And we're going to call this contacts. And then here we are in contacts. And then what I'm going to do is do a rename of stuffs. Well, I won't. What I'll do instead is I'm going to say contacts. I'm going to do this manually because it's a little tricky. I'll call this contacts schema, and then contacts schema, and then export contacts, and then contacts schema. Okay, there we go. Let's see, we've got something that's wrong. Nope, we got the green check. Okay, so we've made a copy, renamed stuff, and now we want to rename the collection to contacts, and then we need the fields first name, last name, address, image, description, and owner. Okay, so first name, last name, address, image, description, owner. Let's see how well I can remember that. First name, and then last name, and then see if I can do this. So option, yeah, address, image, and description, right? First name, last name, address, image, oh, and owner. Well, we got owner in there already, so let's just leave that. Okay, so first name, last name, address, image, description, owner. First name, last name, address, image, description, owner. All our strings. Sweet. Okay, and so all we have to do is get rid of this, and save that. So I think that we are all G with this. Let's go back to here. Okay, so yes, we've renamed. We've got the right fields. They're all strings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to update settings.development.json with this data. This is kind of painful, I'm not going to lie. Because what we're going to do, if we go to settings.development.json, we got this JSON file, and what we want to basically do is take this data that we had in, as our sample data in the component, and let's copy it, and we want to put it in here as JSON. The only problem is JSON is junk. Okay, so what's going to happen when and this is actually where IntelliJ is really handy. So the problem is all these things need to be strings, default contacts. So we call this default contacts. All of these guys require that instead of them being just objects, we have to make them into strings. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the first name, and then we'll do a replace all, and then we just have to start going through for all 6 of these things. Replace all. Address becomes address. Image becomes image. Description becomes description as a string. Okay. And then we notice also that this should be a colon. Let's put it right next to it. And then, even more irritating, these need to be double quotes. And to make things even worse, for some reason, when the cut and paste happens, you get these weird, not even sure why that happened, but at any rate, you get those things in there. So now what we have to do is change all the single quotes to double quote. So we do all that. And then the last thing we have to worry about is these silly plus signs. Well, they don't, it doesn't like that. So what we're going to do is, for the JSON file, we're just going to have to violate our, desire to have things less than 120 characters, because there just ain't no way that we're going to do that. And so do that, and then she has this punning riddle thing. So I think we could maybe put a single quote in there. Okay, let's see. And then we don't want a single quote here. And obviously there's no semicolon in JSON. And let's see what this says. Well, it's highlighting that. Oh, maybe it's just because it's here. Okay, so we get the check mark, and looks, fairly reasonable. So, oh, and we have to add an owner field, john@foo.com, and then admin@foo.com. So let's say comma owner john@foo.com, and then we can copy that line and then go comma color V, and then comma, and then should be good. So we go back. Okay, so we've added the owner field, John, and did we do admin for the last one? No. Let's make admin have one of them. Okay. Now we're going to load the sample data on startup. Okay, so we've got this sample data in the settings file, right? That's cool. Now what we have to do is make sure that when we load things up, actually let's try to do this reformat so that we can, at least we get the indentation correct. So now that we've got this settings developed, we have to load it on startup. So we're going to edit the mongo.js file to load the sample contact data on startup if there are no documents in the contact collection. All right, so let's go back here. And basically, let's look at this file here. Now this is, since it's in the startup folder, what that means is that in our server, top level server main.js, we're going to load that, basically require that file to be loaded on startup, which means this code will be run, which means in particular this code will be run, which says I'm going to check the contents of the stuffs database, and if I don't see anything in there, I'm going to go into this settings file, settings.development.json, which is our settings file. And the reason why it's our settings file is because we always run, where is it? We run, here it is, Meteor npm run start. We run a script to bring up Meteor, and that start script is in package, where am I? In package.json, and that start script says ---- settings config settings.development.json. So this is we run this script called start to start up Meteor. This script runs this command which says to Meteor, set the settings file to be this particular file right here. Okay, and one of the implications of that is that that file, which is a JSON file, becomes the value of the meteor.settings variable. Okay, so we can check if meteor settings.defaultData is basically saying is in this file if there's a field called default data. Okay, so we'll follow that same structure to do, where am I? All confused. To add the data for contacts. We're not going to get rid of the stuff. We're just going to keep kind of adding our own functionality on top of it. And then what we'll do as a final pass is we'll go get rid of the stuff, but we're going to wait till we're totally done with implementing digits before we get rid of that stuff. So we'll create contact data, and we'll map over default contacts. Okay, and then it doesn't know about contacts, so we can do an import contacts from, and then the nice thing about using these relative this relative pass stuff is that IntelliJ can actually do completion on that, which is kind of nice. Okay, so if contacts.find.count equals 0, then if our contacts collection is empty, then if we see there's a default contacts field in our settings file that we've loaded, then we're going to say creating contact data, and then we'll call default contacts map, and then we got to add contact. We got to do something a little different than add data, but we can use that as our basis. So we'll go down here and we'll say, let's have add contact, and what we can say is adding the last name with the owner, and then instead of stuffs.insert, we're going to say contacts.insert. All right, so there we're going to map through each of these objects in the default contacts array, which, again, we see right here. Here's our default contacts field. It is an array. Each array has an object in it, so each one of those objects in turn will be passed to our add contact function, and then inside there we're going to do an insert of that data, and beforehand we're going to print out who's the contact and then who owns it, just kind of randomly, just so we know what's going on. Okay, so alrighty. Okay, check your work so far. Stop Meteor, invoke Meteor Reset to clear the database, then Meteor npm run start. And then if all goes according to plan, we're going to see this. Sometimes all does not go according to plan, just going to say. But we'll do Meteor Reset. What does Meteor Reset do? Meteor Reset clears out the database. That's the function of that, which is really good when you're altering the structure of things, adding fields, subtracting fields. You do that Meteor Reset and you get to start from scratch. Once you're deploying to Galaxy, as you'll see in a couple weeks, it's a little more complicated because Meteor Reset only clears the database in your local laptop, but the database in the cloud needs to be cleared as well. You have to do something different for that. Okay, so things are starting up. Okay, nice. So everything worked, which is great. So just so you can see the whole thing, Meteor npm start. We've got the bcrypt thing. We don't worry about that. We created some default users. We still are creating our stuff, but that's okay for now. And then creating contact data. We added 3 users with 2 different owners, and the system is now running. All right, so cool. All right, so the next thing is we want to publish the contact data to client. So far what's happened is we have put the data from our settings.development.json file into the database on the server. Now we're going to start the process of getting that data from the server over into the client. First thing we have to do is get into IntelliJ. The first thing we have to do once we're in IntelliJ is we've got to make a publication. And remember what publications are. Publications are ways, are descriptions of how data will be sent from the server to the client and put in the client's little mini Mongo database that they can actually access. So we have a publish for stuff, And so the easy thing to do is just make a copy of that, and we'll call this contact, and we'll return all the contacts with whose owner is the logged in user. Okay, and then we have to actually import contact. Okay, you notice I'm using this tab a lot. That's to make sure that that I don't have to type as much, and then B, that it's spelled correctly. I'm not making little typographical errors. Okay, so that creates the contact publication. And while we're at it, let's create a publication for contact admin. I don't know if I do this right here. I think I might, but it's going to be the exact same thing. And what we do here is, whereas the contact publication says, send to the client when you subscribe to this one. When you subscribe to this publication, send to the client all of the contacts owned by this particular logged in user, okay, when they visit a page, or actually when they render a component. This one says, if a page subscribes to the contact admin publication, this one says, hey, if the logged in user has the role admin, just send them the whole thing. Send them everything in the database. Or I'm sorry, not send them everything in the database. Send them everything in the contacts collection. Whereas in this case, we're sending them everything in the contacts collection that's owned by the user. All right, that's what those two things do. So we published. So yeah, we've done the contacts admin and the contacts. Oh, they want this to be plural. Contacts admin. So let's just make sure we follow the instruction. And then we're going to edit list context to display data from the context collection. Edit list context.js to remove the context field. Subscribe to the context publication, and then map through this .props.context to generate the displayed contacts. All right, that sounds pretty simple. So we go to list contacts. First thing we can do is get rid of this. All right, so we're flying on our own now. We've got to go to the database to get this. Okay, so how do we do that? We go down here and we say we're going to subscribe to the contacts collection. And then once we've done that, we're going to create a variable called contacts, which is the result of getting all of the documents out of our local contacts collection. Okay, so here's the genius of Meteor, which is not obvious at first, but oops, contacts. Okay, so what's happening now is when this line of code says, get me all of the contacts out of the mini-Mongo local client collection. So even though on the server side, contacts holds all of the contacts, on this side, on the client side, because we're using this subscription, our local contacts collection contains only those contacts that are owned by this particular logged in user, which is kind of cool. Okay, so we have to do some little housekeeping here. That should be contacts because that's what's being returned here. And then yeah, we look good, I think, right? Import contacts. What's wrong with this? Oh, all right. So these are this is something you'll run into kind of unfortunately, which is that there's an ordering for import statements where if it's a relative path, ESLint wants those listed after the ones with absolute path. So I have to put this down to the bottom. I don't really care, but it apparently is a best practice. So let's just follow what they say. Okay, so this all looks good. Let's see. Edit list contents, remove the context field. We did that. Subscribe to the context publication, true, and map through this.props.context to generate the displayed this.props.context. This.props.context. All right, I knew there was something else. Okay. When you're finished, the list context page for john@foo.com should look like this. All right, so finally we can go back here, and if we say john@foo.com and a password, list contacts, boom. So now we're displaying. Remember before we had 3 contacts in here because we were just kind of displaying whatevers. Now we're actually getting data out of the database, and not only that, we're getting the data from the server side, which is owned by this user, john@foo.com. And if you recall, you can go back here. What's the data owned by john@foo.com? Well, it's these 2 right here, right? Okay, so that's really awesome that we got that working. And it looks just like this. Okay, and then if you log out and log in as admin.foo.com, then the page should look like this. Well, let's just go ahead and do that. So we'll sign out, go to login, sign in, admin@foo.com, password, go to list contacts page, and voila. Okay, looks great. Okay. So now we have to implement the admin page. Last step here. So we're going to make a copy of app imports UI components contact.js called contactadmin.jsx. Change the component name to contactadmin, and then add a new card content field at the bottom that contains this.props.context.oma. Add the extra property. All right, so that's a mouthful, but we're going to start with contact.jsx and make it contactadmin.jsx. So here's contact.jsx, and then we'll call this contactadmin.jsx, and then we'll do a replace of contact. Ooh, no, we're not. That's way too many matches. So we'll just say contactadmin, contactadmin, and contactadmin. There's only 3 places we want to change that property. And then we're going to add another card content to the bottom. And inside there is going to be this.props.contact.owner. Okay. And it's happy about, no, it's happy. Okay. All right, so let's save that out. So we contact admin, we changed the component to kind of added a new card contact field, added the extra property. Add the extra property. This.props.contact.owner. Okay. Okay, make a copy of listcontacts.jsx called listcontactsadmin.jsx. Listcontacts.jsx. Listcontactsadmin.jsx. And then in this case, I think we can do, we can do list contacts. There's only 3 matches. So we'll call this list contacts admin. Replace. Okay. Let's look at our imports. And we change the component name, subscribe to contacts admin rather than contacts. Contacts admin rather than contacts. Map to contact admin, not contact. So we're going to, we want to display the contact admin component, not the contact one. And then it doesn't know about that. So I guess in this case, we could just get away with doing that. and change the title of the page to List Contacts Admin. So we have to go here, do that. Okay. Finally, in app.jsx, make the admin route go to List Contacts Admin rather than list stuff admin. So let's go to app.jsx. Here's the admin, list contact admin. No, list contacts admin. And list contacts admin. List contacts admin. Oh, I hope I spelled everything okay. All right. So now when you have finished, the admin page should look like that. Okay, so let's see. So here we are, we're logged in as admin. Yay! Does it look like that? Sure does. Okay. Notice that the admin is subscribing to a publication that gets all the context regardless of who the owner is, right? Only users with the admin role can do that. So our last step is to get out of here, Control C, and then do Meteor npm run lint. Okay, so this is a way of just checking all of the pages in our app rather than kind of clicking through them in IntelliJ and seeing if the green check mark appears each time. That's kind of painful. We just have this little script which is going to run through our whole imports directory and run ESLint on that. So this is much more convenient as a final step. While you're actually working, obviously it's super nice in the given file to be using that to kind of make sure that everything's all right. But as a final check, this script is really nice. So our page renders correctly. We can Control C. We already did that. Stop your timer. Note your. So we're going to round this off to a even 30 minutes. And commit and push contacts collection 1 branch to GitHub with the message contacts collection finished in 30 minutes. Contacts collection finished in 30 minutes. Commit, and we'll push to origin so that it's up on GitHub. And there you have it. Okay, so 30 minutes, kind of a long one, but we accomplished a lot while we did this, and I hope that you're getting a better sense for fiddling around with collections, sample data, and so forth. See you next time.